Hey folks, Quilly here, and welcome to my very first full Let's Play of Sid Meier's Civilization 7 here on the channel. This may not be the first video for Civ 7 on my channel, but this is going to be the full, complete, unaltered, every single turn is going to be present game of Civ 7 on my channel. I've got to give a big shout out here to 2K and Firaxis for sponsoring this video. You too can build an empire that stands the test of time. Sid Meier's Civilization 7 is on PC and consoles from February the 11th. It's got 3 distinct ages, each with their own exclusive sets of historic civilizations to choose from as you evolve your empire. In this episode, we'll start to meet the leaders who'll guide your empire through the ages. We're ready to get started. Now, I always play, when there's a new version of Civ, I always play as Egypt and or Rome. To me, those are the most iconic classic era civilizations that you can play as, and indeed, that is the case. I have probably by this point on my channel some early preview copies of me playing as Hatshepsut, starting off as Egypt, and this time we're going to be playing as Augustus and starting off as the Romans over here. So, whereas I said Hatshepsut is fine and fun and great to play, I said I didn't think she was necessarily the most powerful of the leaders. I don't know. I mean, sure, we're going to find out all kinds of crazy broken combos as we go, but I feel that Augustus is incredibly strong over here. And here's why. First of all, so when we're talking about the leader himself over here, Augustus, he's got the Imperium Maius. He's got this ability over here, where he gets +2 production in the capital for every town, which is lovely. Now, this is towns, not cities, and we'll talk about the differences between those later on, but it's still a very good ability. This one here, which doesn't seem as obviously potent, is insane. Can purchase culture buildings in towns, and +50% gold towards purchasing buildings in towns. Now, if you haven't followed the news for Civ 7, you may not know what we're talking about. We're talking about towns versus cities. It's going to become very obvious once we get a little bit further in, but when you create a new settlement in Civ 7, it is a town, which can then be converted into city, and they work slightly differently. Now, that's our leader. Of course, in Civ 7, you can mix and match between your leader and your civilization. Now, this isn't the first Civ game that does this, although it's gotten a lot more hype on it for Civ 7, but you can go and pick a different civilization to lead as a particular leader. However, there are historical recommendations, and for example, with Augustus here, Rome, as well as Egypt are the 2 recommendations over there, and it's also worth noting that by default, the AI leaders will pick, as far as I understand it, will pick nations that are historically accurate for them. So, Roman Empire here, 12 tables, +1 culture on districts in the capital and city centers in towns. We're seeing a lot of synergy with towns, which again will make more sense as we get into it. I don't want to front load you with too much knowledge if you haven't been following too much. We also get a +30% production bonus towards constructing Colosseum. As far as I can tell, all of the different nations, all of the different civs have a 30% production boost towards their particular iconic wonder. Anyone can build the Colosseum, but the Romans will do it best. We also get a unique unit, the Legion over here, +2 combat strength for every tradition in the government. We'll look at what those are later on. We've got Legacies is a unique unit that replaces the army commander. Army commanders are similar in a sense to great generals in previous games, but they do a heck of a lot more than just giving a few passive buffs to your troops. They are the centerpiece of your army, and they're going to be very important. The Legatus in particular here, as you level up, these units do gain experience points and level up. The Legatus, for every 3 level they have, they'll be able to spawn 1 new settlement, 1 new town/city from that ability, which is brilliant, and is an overlap in history about how the Roman army had like lots of engineers and stuff like that for building roads and bridges and things, so and building forward settlements and things like that, like say Londinium. Is that how it's pronounced? I think, the thing that eventually becomes London. We have a unique quarter, the Forum. We're going to talk about the quarters a little bit later on, and then we have unique buildings. So if you haven't followed the news, the way buildings work and the way districts and buildings on the map work are fairly different, and this is going to factor into our unique buildings, the Temple of Jupiter and the Basilica, as well as new quarter, the Forum. I'm also running a couple of mementos. These are things that you can choose during game setup to personalize your experience. You can switch these around every run. I have decided on these 2. I'm not saying that they're the strongest necessarily. I have no idea, but they're 2 that I thought would be interesting to showcase. One of them will give me a military attribute point, which we're going to spend basically right away to showcase the leader attribute system. And the other, Imago Mundi, gives extra sight bonus to our scouts. I in games of Civ, in previous editions of Civ, because I usually play on the top difficulty, Deity, especially in Civ 5 and Civ 6. Civ 4, I still have never beat on the top difficulty, even though it's my personal favorite version of Civ. God, I love Civ 4 so much. In Civ 5 and Civ 6, on Deity difficulty, I would love to start with a Scout first, but it's usually too dangerous, and I feel that I have to start with a Warrior unit immediately. Here in Civ 7, the Scouts are very special how they work, and I think in Mago Mundi, this Memento, I'm going to use this to really give them as much of an oomph as possible. Let's go and spend our attribute point. As your leader, you get these attributes, and these will continue. They will persist throughout the entire game. We have a point to spend in militaristic, so I'm going to do that. I can either give myself +5 combat strength against independent powers and city-states, or gain 1 free war support on all your wars. We'll talk about war support once we get into a proper war. This is really good. Independent powers and city-states are, in Civ 7, basically what barbarian encampments and city-states were in, say, Civ 6, for example. That's where your experience is. It's kind of both at the same time. And +5 combat strength against them is going to be huge, especially in the early game. The war support's going to be great later on, but in the early game, this is going to be stupendous, so I'm really excited about that, and I think that's going to make a big difference for us. With that, hey, do you think, we're 6.5 minutes in. Do you think we should settle her for a city? I think it's time for that. We've got our founder over here. Founder is slightly different from a settler. And I said a settler founds a town normally. A founder founds your true capital city with a palace in it. We could move it around. I think we're probably fine. Start where we are. So I'm going to go ahead and just found the settlement. Boom. And we've got Roma. Get that pop in it. The art obviously is gorgeous. What do we have immediately next to us? We have some iron. You can see here in the tooltip, iron will give our infantry units +1 combat strength. I'm sure that's not something that's going to come up in a Roman playthrough, but, just in case, maybe it'll be okay. And we got some wine. Hey, no complaints there. We've got some cotton and some jade to our south, as well as some little horsies over here for +1 combat strength for cavalry units and an additional +1 against infantry units. I am actually notorious for not using much cavalry when I play my Civ games, but maybe this will be an exception. Or, honestly, the iron gives us +1 to infantry, and who doesn't want to build a bunch of legions? All right. We can hit the button here to choose production. We can also do it by just clicking on the city center itself. And here is the city view over here. Now we can get lots more information about our city by clicking here. We can find out, a bunch of different info, including our central building, the palace. We start with a palace. It produces 5 food, 5 hammers, which is the production we use to create buildings and units and all kinds of stuff, as well as 5 happiness. And you can see it reflected over here in our production. Unlike previous versions of Civ, you do not work the base tile itself of the city, so there's none of this, well, let's move to be on top of a hill or something like that. You're going to get 5, 5, and 5 as your base production in here. And we also start with 1 culture production in our capital, but that is because of some traits that we've got, actually. There we go. From building, plot yield change. It's because as Rome or as Caesar, as either as Augustus or Rome, we had the +1 culture from our palace here in our city. So we're actually going to start with a culture generation of 11. You have a base 10. We're going to start as 11, slightly more as Rome. And we got our 10 science. Again, that is all the base and very normal. We're going to be presented with a choice of what to build first. No buildings immediately. Either we can do a scoot and scoot a boot, or we can build a warrior. At some nations, for example, if you're playing as Egypt, you'll be starting with their unique unit right away, but here's just going to be a baseline warrior, which is fine. Now, on higher difficulties, and we are currently playing on difficulty 4 out of 6, which name is Sovereign over here. The higher difficulty you go, I think the more important it is to actually start with a military unit immediately. But because we've got that memento that boosts scout vision, I am going to start with the scout first. I think after that, I'm going to aggressively build some military. We are playing as Rome, of course, so it fits, but we're going to start with that. The game auto gives you the agriculture technology being researched. It's 1 turn away, and it also starts with the chiefdom Civic, which is currently 10 turns away. We have 0% progression towards the next age currently. We'll talk about ages plenty. We've got a variety of other buttons over here. We can check our social policies. Not that there's anything to speak of over here yet, but there very soon will be. Resource allocation, we'll be playing around with lots of this as we go. We've got great works, we've got religion, we haven't founded one yet, and we've got player unlocks over here, which I'm just going to leave for now because I think it's got a couple of things that may be embargo limited currently, so I'm going to just hesitate to click on that for now. And yeah, we can click on our own character over here. We can find out info. We could click on other rulers and find out whether they like us or don't like us, if we'd found any yet, but we don't have any of that. And if we do mouse over a ribbon, we get some stats there, which will be really nice when we meet some other people because we'll be able to compare with them and see how we're doing. We are now 10 minutes into the video. We're going to end turn 1. Well, if you're new to the channel, first of all, remember to subscribe and like. And also, 10 turns for the first turn in the game, or 10 minutes for the first turn in the game, that's honestly kind of a personal best speed run. All right, we're not being prompted to choose a technology because we have finished agriculture. We can check the tree over here for technology. This, it's worth noting, is only for the first age. The game is divided into 3 eras. We've got the Antiquity Age, we've got the Exploration Age, and we've got the Modern Age. Currently we're in Antiquity, so it just ends up over here. It's worth noting as well that there are these mastery sort of leaf texts linked to something. So there's currency, and then you can master currency. This is optional. You don't need to go after the masteries to proceed down the tree, but they do give you some interesting bonuses that on some games you'll skip because it's not relevant, and other games you will be, oh, this is a super high priority because it's very important. What I like about this is that Civilization, being a historical game, you mostly go through these tech trees in a consistent fashion. You eventually pick up everything without a lot of variation. With Civ 7, with these masteries, now we still get this kind of logical historical progression through technologies. I mean, this is not a science fiction or fantasy game, so you expect things to progress in a certain way, but now you have more ability to customize your path through technology with these masteries, which are optional, but can do some very cool things. For now, we did start with agriculture. We've now completed that, so I have the ability to build a granary if I want. You can pronounce it granary if you'd like, but granary is also very groovy, and it also gives us +1 food on farms when we get to that point. We now have to choose between sailing, pottery, and animal husbandry, which will lead down some more things. Now let's take a look at what our terrain looks like before we make that decision. We are on the coast. That being said, I'm not sure that sailing is the most critical for us. If we had started on a navigable river, and if you're excited about that, do make sure to check out my Egypt videos because I am really about making maximum use of those navigable rivers, then sailing becomes very key because the fishing key, or K, boosts the food output on fishing boats, which is very important. And actually, just unlocking the technology in and of itself gives you +1 food on fishing boats. And fishing boats are, are especially nice on those navigable rivers, and especially as Egypt. We could go animal husbandry. This gives us the slinger, which is it's an early ranged unit, and ranged units are very powerful. Since Civ 5 forward, right, ever since they added the 1 unit per tile mechanics in Civ, ranged units have really been the king of warfare, at least in my opinion. And the slinger is quite good. Unlike the slinger in Civ 6, which had a range of 1, this slinger, unless I am wrong, and I'm never wrong, this slinger does have a range of 2, same as an archer. It's basically just a more primitive version of the archer. It's quite good. We got the saw pit here for increased yield. That gives you, just building the saw pit gives you +1 production, and it's +1 production on camps and woodcutters, which we will probably end up with some. That's not bad. And then pottery, we can build a brickyard, which gives you increased output on clay pits, mines, and quarries, bonus to food on plantations, bonus production on quarries. What are we going to do? Well, we're probably going to be mining the iron relatively soon. And if we mine the iron and then build a brickyard, we will get the extra production. That's kind of nice. Early on, I do really like food production, though. And one of the things that we don't have quite as much of here is anything that's giving us a substantial amount of food. I'm torn, and I don't think there's a wrong answer. I'm going to start with animal husbandry, but we'll probably pick up pottery fairly quickly, which is the exact opposite, again, of my Egypt run, which should be on my channel, where we went sailing immediately. So we have completed our first scout, I should say. I could build a granary. Right now, the granary would only give us 1 food because we don't have farms or pastures and plantations yet. So it wouldn't be terribly impressive, though it does set us up for some nice ones pretty quickly. I was just complaining about we don't have a tremendous amount of food here. The granary would fix that. But I am very tempted to get a warrior immediately for some defense, especially since we're playing on a slightly higher difficulty. But tell you what, let's plop down the granary because that'll let us talk about this. The granary, if you were playing Civ 6, you would be building the granary. It would just be part of your city center. But in Civ 7, every building goes on a tile. It works very much like the districts in Civ 6. So if you're used to building campuses or holy sites and things like that, right, you would build them on a tile. And then you'd also have some buildings, like, say, the library, that is being built inside of that district. Here, every building you build goes on a tile very specifically. As soon as there is a building on a tile, it becomes an urban tile. This is going to be different from a rural tile, which we'll see as soon as our population rises in our city. This will create an urban district wherever we click it. Urban districts have room for 2 buildings. You can see, I can't mouse over there. I'd love to point at my screen right now, but in the box in the top left corner of the screen, you see it's got the down arrow is showing you we're placing this here, and it's got a little plus. It has room for 2 buildings. Every district, every urban district has room for 2 buildings. For example, if I mouse over the city center, we already have the palace in there. So I could click here to add a granary to my city center district, and it would occupy the second slot. And in this case, that would be fine. Some of the buildings have a lot of adjacency bonuses, and you're going to want to kind of think about placement. With the granary, it doesn't actually have any adjacency bonuses whatsoever. I think it's perfectly fine to stick in our city center right now. We'll leave all these other tiles open and be flexible. So we'll do this. It'll get built in 11 turns currently. It'll actually be faster than that because we will be boosting our production as soon as our population rises in 5 turns here. So we'll do that. Next up, we've got to move our scout. We do have a little flyaway panel here with a few extra functions that we can use. And we can just move the scout. So the scout moves 2 tiles at a turn. Let's go ahead and just click there and move it. I love the way the map looks. It's absolutely gorgeous. Love the way the fog of war clears out. I mean, 10 out of 10 right there for sure. We're going to go hit next turn. Then we'll showcase one of the scout's abilities instead. Oh, I think I misread here. The city has actually just grown its population by 1. Or maybe it's guaranteed to do that in the next turn, actually. I hadn't quite noticed that. But Rome has just grown to a population of 2. And we got a button here for, in the bottom right corner that says Grow City. If I click on that, what we're doing here, every unit of population, just like in every Civ game that's ever existed, every unit of population works a tile in your city. That's the same as before. The difference now, though, is that unit of population gets placed down and creates, currently, until we unlock specialists, we'll talk about that more later, currently creates a rural district wherever it gets plopped out. So you have the urban districts, which is where buildings exists, and you have rural districts, which is where an individual unit of your population will work that tile. By plopping that down, it will create an improvement at the same time. So if we were to click here in this rough grassland, it will create a mine. If we click here in this rough grassland, it'll also be a mine. Here we've got farms. You can see little chickens. This is a fishing boat. And here we've got a woodcutter. Now, the improvement itself, like, you don't have to worry about, well, what's the difference between a mine and a woodcutter by itself? It's just what it says on the tile. If I click here, I will get a tile that's going to produce 1 food and 1 happiness. This tile is going to produce 1 food. This is going to be 1 food, 1 production, 1 food, 1 production, 1 happy face, 1 food, 1 production, 1 money. We know we're currently building a granary, which will produce 1 more food in all of our farms. For example, hey, we've got a couple of farms over here. So what I might want to do is plan ahead and click here to take advantage of that. Alternatively, the other thing that's different, very different in Civ 7, is your borders of your cities don't grow on their own. They don't grow as a result of producing culture. Instead, when you plop down a rural district, it's going to do what we old Civ players would refer to as a culture bomb. It's going to grow the borders of your city adjacent to that. So if I were to put a rural district here, it would then claim these 3 tiles within the border of the city. They wouldn't produce anything right away, but they would be claimed, which means we'd be able to expand to them later on. It means we own those tiles from a government point of view. And it's quite good for us to advance maybe towards resources. For example, if I claimed either one of these 2, then on my subsequent turn, I could go and grab this tile here with the iron, which is pretty nice. And I think we're researching the build. No, we're not researching the pottery boosting building, or the mine building. Maybe we are building. What are we researching? Yeah, the saw pit, which boosts camps and woodcutters. Right, which we could put a woodcutter here. If I did switch to the pottery and then we could build the brickyard instead when it came in, then that mine would be more valuable. Maybe I'll do that, actually. I'm going to switch my research over instead to pottery. And I'm going to go here. It'll give us a little bit extra food for our city growth, which is great. And the happy face, we don't need the happy face right now because we have positive happiness. Although the more net positive happiness we have in our empire, the more rapidly we will generate celebrations, which are really useful. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and expand here. Interestingly enough, despite the fact that it is a mine, we are not actually boosting our production. Not yet, not until we have some supporting things. But there we go. We've expanded there, and you can see our borders have reached out as well. Great. Now, I could keep moving my scout, but I'm going to use one of our 2 scout abilities this turn. We've got the lookout ability, which increases sight range by 1. It just leaves your unit here and gives them extra sight range. Now, it says +1, but remember, we are running Imago Mundi, which is +3 sight instead of +1 for the scout's search and lookout ability. So the lookout parks him here, which is a great thing to do after you're done using your scout as a scout. But then we also have this lookout, or the search ability. Sorry. Yes, the search ability here. It says increase sight range by 1 for 1 turn, and reveal all discoveries within twice this range. Let me click on this button, and we should get something very interesting. First of all, you can see it definitely saw further than just +1. We did get the +3 sight range in there, so we could see everything down to here. In addition to that, in the fog of war, we can see things. There's some runes over here. Because at double our sight range, it revealed these extra special things. There's one here, there's one here. These are the quote-unquote goodie huts of Civ 7, although they come in a variety of different flavors. We've got a cave, we've got a rune, we've got another rune over there. And that, to me, seems like all we've got currently. But by spending 1 turn doing this search action, we have much more direction as to where to send our scout now. You can see the sight range changed, but if I just parked him with lookout, it would be a great way to keep an eye out for hostile enemies. I'm going to go ahead and head to this ruin here because it's the closest, and then from there we can go to that ruin. So I'm just going to right-click that way for my scout, and he'll see what he can see. Next turn. There we go. You can see Rome is growing quite quickly here. Oh, now that's making me wish I'd started with a warrior. This is a scout belonging to, I think I had said Hattusa village. And that is a hostile village. If we check over here, okay, we haven't actually, oh no, there it is. We don't know where Hattusa is, although probably right over here, I would suspect at this point, but we know that there's an independent village called Hattusa. Now, they are hostile, so they will be looking to attack us. We could befriend them. We have a resource called Influence. Once we find their actual city, we will have the option of spending Influence to make them friendly to us instead of aggressive. Or we could do Roman things and just go and conquer them. That's a possibility as well. Well, conquer, disperse, really. But more on that when we get there. We have reached this route and we get a nice decision. The discontented subjects of a departed lord have disturbed his tomb. They haul out the riches buried with him, tribute stolen from their own chapped hands. Option 1. I could reclaim the stolen tribute, get 75 gold. I only have 25 right now. I'm only making 5 per turn. 75 gold is a lot of money. Or I could rebury the lord with dignity, give me 45 culture. I mean, culture is great for unlocking the other tech. There's techs and then there's the civics, but it's, kind of a technology, and accelerating that is very valuable. I think I'm going to go with the culture on this one. We're going to rebury the lord with dignity. Boom. There you go. We can see the progression on chiefdom. It's nearly done. We're going to go ahead next turn, and we should get that now. Great. Oh, and we get a narrative choice. The Senate is in session and voices are raised in conflict. A lone senator speaks out against imperial fiat, while Augustus's supporters seek to drown him out. So I believe I think there's plenty of sort of general ones for everyone, but there are also some that are specific to whatever nation or leader we're playing as. So here, we could listen to the senator, we'd build 3 monuments, we'd get some culture, says selecting this option will begin a quest. Or we could say, only the strength and loyalty of the army matters, have a commander with 3 promotions, 15% production towards training infantry, or there are greater pleasures in life than politics, get 50 bucks. I think 3 monuments would require us to have a number of cities. Actually, normally this quest, I believe, would require us to have 3 cities, I think, to build a monument. I may be wrong. Maybe you can always build a monument in town. But we can definitely build monuments in towns here as Augustus because we can always buy culture buildings in towns, which not everyone has the ability to do that. So that's quite interesting. I do think we're probably going to build a fair amount of military, though. You know what? I'm going to say only the strength and loyalty of the army matters. We're going to have a very militaristic vibe. We've got a little quest here in the journal. Now, there are other things we can check in the journal at this point, the age progression. In classic Civ, say in Civ 6, if we're talking about that, At the end of the game, there are victory conditions you can achieve. You know, your science/space victory, for example, your conquest victories, etc., etc. In Civ 7, in every age, there are these legacies that you can build towards. What made you so impressive in the Age of Antiquity? Here we've got culture, which involves building a bunch of wonders. There's a variety of little steps over here that progress things and give you some little rewards along the way. The ultimate goal you can see here, ultimately for culture, you're going to want to build 7 wonders. In military, you're going to want to have 12 towns or cities. Conquered settlements count as 2. Obviously a very military vibe, makes sense. For science, have codices. Codexes are things that you can gain through some quests and things like that, but a lot of it is through researching those masteries. So by researching masteries, a lot of them will say +1 codex, for example, and ultimately you want to get 10 codices. A codex is worth 2 science per turn in and of itself and progresses this science branch over here. And then we have economy, which is to have lots and lots of little resources. Again, there's a bunch of little sub-steps along the way that are sort of leading you to get there, but ultimately they're all going to lead you towards getting a total of 20 resources. Now, what we can do is we can actually track all these, and you can do all of them in any combination to any degree. You can hyper focus on one, you can spread things around. There's little rewards everywhere. It is quite beneficial. There's a lot of extra perks to completing the top level of these with these golden ages. It's very nice, but you've got a lot of flexibility. But there you go. I've pinned them here, so we've got a variety of things listed on there, including the little quest, have a commander with 3 promotions. So we're going to get a legate. Legate? It feels like it's probably legate because it's Latin, but I'm probably just going to say legate or legate. We can grow our city again. Awesome. So we're size 3. So again, we can expand everywhere. Now, the tiles with resources are quite handy because by building a rural district here, we gain the resource. And it's also worth noting that your urban buildings, you don't build urban buildings on resources. I think you literally cannot build them on resources. I suppose we could check really quick. Oh no, I don't have any other buildings unlocked yet. We'll check afterwards if we're still there. But in any case, we want that. So getting the iron for the +1 strength is going to be quite good. And it's a decent tile. 1 food, 1 production, 1 happiness. Now it's worth noting, normally this would represent, like, let's say this 1 food tile. In classic versions of Civ, this would feel like a net loss because normally 1 unit of population in Civ costs you 2 food. Here, this is the amount of food you would get above and beyond like whatever is needed to support the population. The population that deploys to this tile is self-sustaining, so this is always the net win that you're coming out of over here. This is equivalent of a 3 food tile in previous versions of Civ, so it's not too bad at all. And of course, this is going to be multiplied hugely as we build more support buildings. Now, one of the things you might be wondering at this point is, hey, what if I go and plop down a district? Let's say I click here and put a rural district here to get get this food, right? What if later I want to build a urban building here or a wonder? Have I just blocked myself? No. What's really nice about Civ 7 is if you build an urban district on top of a rural district or a wonder on top of a rural district, that unit of population comes back to you and you can redeploy it somewhere else, either in a brand new rural district, or once we unlock the ability to have specialists, you can deploy it within one of your urban districts as a specialist. Now, it's worth noting that when you deploy them as a specialist, because they're not deploying as these rural districts that are self-sustaining, that specialist does cost you 2 food and 2 happiness to run as a specialist. Very different. You need a fair amount, you need a baseline of production, mostly of food and happiness, to support the specialist. Although this is where towns will come in, and we'll get to those soon enough. Now, getting the horse gives us the combat strength. I think I'm going to go over here. I suspect early on we're going to make good use of infantry units. I mean, infantry units are always going to be useful, so we'll deploy over here. Boom. And there we go. So we've got a mine here. So now if we check Rome, 7 food, 6 production. Excellent. And a little bit more happy face over here. I mean, within the city itself, as long as you're above 0 is, I think, all you need. But the global happiness, again, fills up a celebration meter that will eventually trigger a celebration for us. We have to choose a civic. So we can look at the civic tree here. This is all the civics that everyone has access to in the antiquity stage, including masteries, just like technology, right? But then also, with our nation, we have a unique little baby tree that has something specific to your nation. So we can research Exercitus Romanus, which is the thing that unlocks the Temple of Jupiter, which is one of our unique buildings. There's Civis Romanus, which unlocks the Basilica, our other unique building. And with those powers combined, we can also build our unique quarter by building those 2 in the same tile. So it is quite tempting, and most likely we'll probably go for one of our unique ones, but there are a couple other options available. For example, mysticism over here would give us, so this quill icon, you know that they totally put that in the game for me, the quills. It's a shout out to me. This is a social policy that we can run. And if we run this, it gives us +2 gold in all settlements. Very good. It also gives us a building, the altar, and it unlocks founding a pantheon. And obviously religions are pretty powerful in these kinds of games. There's also discipline over here, which gives us even more movement sight to our scouts. It unlocks a wonder, the Dur Sharukin. It unlocks the function of an army commander, although in our case, it will unlock the Legacies, which is our unique variant of that, and we will get one of them for free. And we actually have a side quest to get a commander up to level 3. It might be worth, I really like the nation unique stuff, but it might be worth in this case for us to go and get started with discipline so that we can get that army commander and start working on this little subquest. So I'm going to research that. We also, because we completed chiefdom, get to choose a government. Now, these governments in and of themselves don't do that much. What these do is when you have a celebration, which happens from having excess happiness, you will get to choose one of these 2 bonuses. And as far as I can tell, the way these are arranged is they have one option that will always be generally good, and one option that will be more circumstantial. For example, if we pick Classical Republic, which to me sounds great for Rome, we will have, when we get a celebration, we'll have the option of either getting 20% more culture for 10 turns, which is always going to be good, or we will be able to pick, and we can pick a different one every time there's a celebration, or we can pick plus 15% production towards constructing wonders, which is great if we're constructing a wonder. So we will pick and choose every time a celebration comes up, depending on what we're doing. Or maybe it'll happen, we'll pick this and be like, hold on, change all of our production everywhere, let's spam out some wonders. I'm going to go for Classical Republic here. I've got to say, though, I really, in the early game, do love this 20% food bonus. Oligarchy, I pick a lot because of this food bonus. I think it's wonderful. But Classical Republic, we'll pick that. And then we get our first social policy. We currently have one whole social policy slot. This is our government screen, so we get our overview about our government. There's your little happiness meter. We can see we're currently about 24 turns away from a celebration. There's also crisis. This will come into play at the end of an age. And then our policies. So currently I have 2 options. These are always available. I can either have +2 culture in my palace or tool making, which is +1 production and 1 science. In my opinion, these are pretty equitable. I guess since we're slightly producing more culture than science, I'll go tool making. We'll get +1 production. There we go. And the extra science. So we're building things slightly faster in Rome. We're getting science a little bit faster. That seems pretty good. This unit is waiting for some orders, so we'll go and run to this rune over here, reveal more territory. Ooh, we've got, what's this? Silver. Oh, very nice. We've got some marble here, some more cotton, and some salt down here. We've got some dyes off the coast, some little fishies over here, cotton over there. Your cities do reach a maximum workable distance of 3 tiles away from your city center. So 1, 2, 3. Well, we actually could work this cotton and this and the jade from Rome, but we wouldn't be able to take advantage of these 2 little resources. We might want to build a little town down here on the southern coast of Rome, build a kind of a fishing village, and then be able to take advantage of the dyes and the fish. That actually sounds pretty good. Maybe not our first settlement, but probably a good one to keep in mind. Anyway, we're half an hour into this video, which is a little bit longer than I wanted to go. Hopefully, everyone found this interesting and is excited to see this full unaltered stuff. If you haven't seen it already on my channel, I do have a 6 video series where I play as Egypt. That is a preview series of videos. It was limited to only a total of 1 hour of gameplay footage. It is 10 minutes per video with a bunch of non-gameplay sort of conversation besides that. So like the first video is like something like 25 minutes long, for example, because it has extra conversation that it doesn't involve actual gameplay video in there. But if you're craving some more Civ 7, you can take a look at that. Again, do check the description box down below for more information about Civ 7, some links to probably the 2K YouTube channel where you can pick up Civ 7, so on and so forth. As a reminder, this video was sponsored by 2K and Firaxis, and I'm so thankful for them to do that. I'm looking forward to playing more of this. I hope you are too. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.